friend. I want to share some life lessons I learned as a result of the events I experienced in 2025. These lessons sometimes come from frustrating situations and sometimes from disappointments and sadness. But what truly matters is not repeating the same mistakes. That's what these lessons are for. I hope what I'm about to share today will help you in the coming years, make your life easier, and help you take precautions without getting hurt. If you're ready, let's begin. First, there's a very important idea I want to talk about, that feeling when something doesn't sit right with you. You're about to start a job, meet someone, or enter a very profitable looking partnership. Everything seems to be going well, right? But in those moments, sometimes there's something that just doesn't feel right inside. Even if everything seems logical, there's still a sense of discomfort or uneasiness. I find this very valuable. I think it's like an emotional alarm within us. If everything looks logical but something doesn't feel right, I usually ask people around me, what do you think? Because sometimes we can't see obvious risks. That uneasy feeling is actually a warning. And I can clearly say this: almost every situation that didn't feel right at the beginning later turned into something I was glad I avoided. So even if everything looks perfect from the outside, pay attention to whether it truly feels right to you. I also want to say something about trust. If you find yourself hesitating between trusting someone and not trusting them, then there's already a trust issue. Because when you truly trust someone, you don't hesitate. But if you're unsure, it means doubt has already entered your mind. You should take that seriously. As you move forward in life, you may sometimes face serious problems. This could be in your work life, family life, relationships, or even related to your child. You might struggle with that problem so much that after a while, you develop blind spots. You try and try, but it doesn't get resolved. Do you know the solution in such cases? If a problem doesn't get solved despite all your effort, step away from it for a while. Focus on other things, distract yourself, and then come back to it. When you return, you'll look at it from a different perspective, more rationally, and you'll find a solution much more easily. You can actually see this in exam questions as well. Imagine solving math problems and getting stuck on one question. The more you struggle with it, the less likely you are to solve it, even if you actually could, because your anxiety increases, your stress rises, and your ability to think clearly decreases. But if you skip that question, solve the others, and come back later, your chances of solving it increase. Sometimes in life, all we need to do is step back, turn inward, and engage in something enjoyable that distracts us. Then solving the problem becomes easier. There are people working in the service sector, cashiers, cleaners, security staff, bank clerks, people whose job is to help us. I notice that some people speak to them harshly, saying things like, "This is your job, you're paid by my taxes, you have to do it." Does that get the job done? Yes, it does, but I think it's problematic. I prefer a different approach. Even if someone is simply doing their job for me, I treat it as if they're giving me a gift. For example, when someone at the bank helps me, I say, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate it." Or at the airport, I might even say beforehand, "You're so kind and helpful." When I treat their actions like a gift, their motivation increases, they smile, and if there's anything extra they can do, they willingly do it. Yes, you might get things done with anger, but only once. After that, that person won't go the extra mile for you. Of course, this approach doesn't work with everyone, but in my experience, it improves relationships and interactions about 80 to 90% of the time. Even if people are just doing their job, if you treat it like they're doing you a favor, you'll always benefit. Now, let's talk about understanding people. We all know the saying, you truly know someone when you travel with them or lend them money, but it's not limited to that. People are always nice when things are going well. You spend time together, eat, drink, talk. Everything is smooth. But the moment you have a conflict or disagree, that's when their true character appears. Instead of immediately smoothing things over, sometimes it's useful to observe how they behave under tension. Real character shows itself in moments of conflict and anger. I've learned this many times. Time is one of the most important things. When you're in your 20s, time feels endless, like life will never end. But when you reach 40, you realize how quickly it all passed. Once you enter working life, you start spending your time to earn money, and this turns into a cycle. You become 30, 40, 50, and suddenly, time is gone. That's why I choose to use the money I earn to gain time and create space for myself. Experiences and things that make you feel good are far more valuable. Today, being constantly busy is seen as a status symbol, but in the past, it was different. There's a French word, flaneur, which describes someone who leisurely wanders the streets with no specific purpose. Instead of just filling our time, we should spend it on ourselves. There's a saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Sometimes people come to you constantly complaining, but they don't actually want a solution. In such cases, I try to help at first, but if I realize they don't want to change, I set boundaries. Because constant complainers can drag your mood down. Mental health is very valuable. A friend of mine once quit social media. Despite having around 1,000 followers, only one person reached out to check on them. That made me realize something. People don't care about us as much as we think, yet we behave as if everyone is watching us. Because of that, can we delay doing what we truly want? As long as we're not harming anyone, we should live our lives freely. And finally, one last thing. If something seems too good to be true, it probably is. Whether it's a relationship, a job, or a partnership, if everything looks perfect, be cautious. In real life, good and bad are balanced. If everything feels overly perfect or intense too quickly, it's a sign to slow down. Because when we get carried away, regret usually follows. These are some of the lessons I learned this year. What have you learned from life? What are the things you've decided to do or not do anymore? You can share your thoughts. I'd love to hear your perspective. Take care of yourself. Goodbye.